Hi, I'm Jason Stuart. I'm an actor, comedian, and I'm an author now of a new book called Shut Up, I'm Talking. And this is my Mr. Media interview.
I'm Bob Andelman, and this is a Mr. Media interview. You can see, hear, and read more than 1,300 of my previous celebrity interviews at MrMedia.com. That's MRmedia.com. Subscribe to the show on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Pandora, Spotify, Overcast, Deezer, Castro, Libsyn, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Mixcloud, Alexa Podcasts, Spreaker, SoundCloud, or Stitcher, and follow me on Twitter and Facebook. And if you like the show, please tell the world with a 5-star review on Apple Podcast or Podchaser, the IMDb of podcasts. On today's show, I'll talk to comedian and actor Jason Stuart, whose new memoir about growing up and out gay is called Shut Up, I'm Talking, Coming Out in Hollywood and Making It to the Middle. This is his third time as a guest on Mr. Media. Stick around. As I started reading comedian and actor Jason Stuart's new autobiography, Shut Up, I'm Talking, Coming Out in Hollywood and Making It to the Middle, I wondered who the audience might be. Well, because Jason is an out gay man, it obviously will appeal to other men like himself. But it also occurred to me, the further along I went, that it would be excellent reading for the families of gay men and lesbian women who could use Jason's insight into the trials and tribulations of his life and coming out experience. Shut Up, I'm Talking is not a graphic exploration of sexuality by any means, but it does explain lots of stuff that straight readers will likely find enlightening about being gay in America. Through it all is Jason's unique voice as narrator of his life, a mix of his twin professional interests, stand-up comedy and acting. Oh, and Barbra Streisand. Jason Stuart, welcome back to Mr. Media.
Thank you for having me on the show again.
My pleasure. Always a pleasure to have you here. And this was interesting that after this at this point in time that you decided to write about your life. I'm kind of wondering, why did you decide to commit all the details to paper and digital at this point?
Well, a lot of the stories came out of me doing my lecture, which was called Coming Out in Hollywood. And some of the stories came from some of the stand-up I did for my stand-up special called Making It to the Middle. And a lot of it was stuff that I did with people like you over the years. I've been being interviewed since around 1993 constantly for the last 26, 27 years. So I had all these stories, and then I would just basically tell these stories. And then I started doing some spoken word stuff, and I did a couple stories in those kind of shows. Like I did Sit and Spin actually last night, and I did the chapter, The Last Train to Heterosexuality Stops Here. I had done the Birth of an Actor in another show, and I had done, what was the other one I did? I did a couple different ones in different spoken word shows. And it just felt like the right time. And then I was talking to this radio producer friend of mine, Dan Duffy, and we had kept in touch through Facebook over the years. He used to be on the Stephen D.C. show in St. Louis, Missouri. And he said, I wrote this book called The Half Book. And I said, well, I'd love to read it. So I went to Amazon, I bought it. I read the book, and I couldn't help. I called him. He was talking. He was with his kids at a little league game. And I said, this book, it was funny, and it touched my heart. And I loved the way it was written. It was like someone was talking to you. It's exactly how I want my book to be. I wish I could find someone like you to help me. And he said, yes, I'd love to. So
Nice.
When something happens that comes to me that easily, then I say, let's do it. So I started doing it on Skype with him. I would tell him stories. He would type it up, and then he'd fix it, and then he'd send it to me, and then I'd fix it, and then we'd read it together, and then we'd fix it. And then after the book was done, it took around a year. I called everybody I could think of and said, hey, I wrote this book. How do I get it done? And people told me everything from one end to the other end. Everybody said things that were completely different. There was no consistency. Took my pitch. It took me 6 months to do it. I had to put it together and da-da-da-da-da. And then somebody goes, 1 page, don't write any more. You don't want to bother them. You don't want to tell them too much. So I wrote what I thought was right. I sent it to a number of people. got a lot of people who wanted me to self-publish, but I found a company called CCB Publishing, and the guy happened to be a fan, liked the chapters I sent to him, and offered me a deal. I had a couple other people, some agents and some people, but I kept calling them, and they back and forth, in the washing machine of show business or the literary business. Mm-hmm. And he's the first one that just seemed really easy to work with, and let's do it. So I did it. I got a publicist, and I've been promoting the book for the last 3 months.
Because you've been talking about a lot of these things over the years, I guess you didn't have this, you weren't unnerved by exposing so much of your life. It's different when you're doing it in front of an audience of maybe a couple hundred people or something like that. Then putting it on paper where anyone can pick it up and read it at any time and anyone can see it, it's still a little different though, isn't it?
Yeah, my mom said, don't use my name. Use the name Goldie. Use the name Goldie. No one's going to know it's me. And I thought to myself, Mom, I've been talking about you in my act for 106 years, And she says, I don't care. They won't remember. And then she finally said I could use her name. And then I read it to her, and she said, okay, that's not too bad. And then she actually read it herself, and she said, why did you talk about me? She was mad at me.
We should say that your mom is a major character in the book.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is the book originally was called I'm Not Barbra Streisand. But when I got the publisher, they said they think she's going to have a book come out next year, and they may sue us. And, even though she is a public figure, and I don't say anything negative about her because I'm a big fan, mm-hmm. But they said not better. So I said, Ma, I can't use the name. I'm not Barbara. I can't use the name. I'm not Barbra Streisand. She goes, oh, I don't know. I said, would you have any ideas for it? She should shut up. I'm talking. And that's how I got the title.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because when I first saw it, I thought, geez, that's kind of an aggressive title, Jason.
I thought the same thing, too. Yeah. But everybody laughs now after they hear it and loves the title. And it has a great story to it. Right. And in the beginning of the book, it tells you about it, So I think it catches you,
No, it definitely works.
The subtitle is two things that it came from, from coming out in Hollywood and making it to the middle. Mm-hmm. And that basically is my story.
So tell people, just give them kind of a little bit about your family and your early days of kind of coping and figuring out who you were, if you would.
Oh, wow. So I grew up in a crazy Jewish family. We were what I call Jewish light. There was a wedding, bar mitzvah, or funeral. We were Jewish. Otherwise, we were just like you. And I have an older brother, a younger sister, a dad, a stepmom, and my mother's assorted husbands. And I guess growing up, in the 70s was so different. It was such a different time. And being a gay person, there really wasn't a lot of places to show images of myself. So everything that went on was in my head. And it took me a long time to admit to myself that I was gay and then admit to my family. And then I have to come out of my career and how that rippled and how it affected what I was doing and how people would think of me as limited and how I was treated. And the book is about the idea of this little gay Jewish boy who wanted to be, successful and went to go see Funny Girl in a little theater on Beverly Boulevard called the Pan Pacific Theater, see this woman named Barbra Streisand that looked like somebody from my neighborhood, who sounded like somebody from my neighborhood. It was funny and sad on the inside and funny on the outside, and was in love with Omar Sharif, who played Nicky Arnstein, her husband in the movie. And I thought, oh my God, I'm in love with Omar Sharif. He's so gorgeous. And in my head, I could never breathe that out loud. And I thought to myself, if I'm in love with him, who am I left to be with her? So I spent most of my life clearing up that wreckage of my past and becoming a man.
Now, I think it's important to point out, especially to a broader audience, you did experiment with, you tried heterosexuality.
I didn't try. It was a job. It was a career. Yeah. I did it as a career. And I had a girlfriend for 5 years, Lisa, and I had other girls that I dated. I had a girlfriend, Amanda, when I was very young. And it's so funny because I just talked to her on social media today. there's a whole chapter on her because she made such a big impression upon me. So it wasn't like, you see, when people who are straight, you talk about tried or, like I knew that I was straight, pretending to hide my gayness. It wasn't even that. It was that I never saw myself as a straight person ever. But I tried to push myself into being it because that's who you were supposed to be. I didn't know I had a choice. I put it to you this way. When I was in the Gay Pride Parade in 1995, after I'd done the Comedy Central Out There special, Leah Delaria, a very well-known actress, comedian, singer, who was also in the parade that day in a car, screamed at me really loud and said, why didn't you come out years ago? And I said, God, I didn't know I could. And I didn't. And I called her to come as a guest on my podcast or one of my radio shows recently. And first thing she said, how'd you get my number? I said, you gave it to me. Oh, okay. And she had her agent call back and say she couldn't do the show. Oh, really? Yes. Jeez. People know her from Orange is the New Black.
Right. Well, I mean, the thing that always got me, this is the third time we've spoken. The first was audio, this one and the last one were video. And leading up to talking today, I was thinking, I remember the first two times we spoke, I couldn't quite, I didn't see you as gay, like as a defining characteristic. I mean, some people you meet, men or women, and you think, okay, that guy is probably gay, or that woman is probably lesbian. And I don't say that to detract from them, but it's just sometimes it's a little more apparent. And the reason I mention it is in the book you talk about how your own family members, people in school, they had decided before you had decided that you were gay, and I thought, looking at you and talking to you today here on the podcast, I'm still not getting this gay vibe from you, where you're like you're not like overly. I don't know. Am I putting myself in a corner here? I don't mean to.
This is what a gay guy is like. This is who, I'm just sort of gay in the middle, I'm wearing khaki pants, Adidas tennis shoes, and a polo shirt. I'm wearing the same out as the white supremacists now. I mean, I heard that on the news. That's what they wear. So I thought, oh my God.
That's funny.
Maybe that's why I keep getting, I just did a pilot presentation where I played a white supremacist, and I thought, oh, is it because I'm wearing this outfit? Who knew that they chose my clothes? They like my outfits.
But why did these people throughout your early part of your life just decide that you were gay? I mean, I'm talking to you. We've talked before. I've seen your podcast. I've heard you for years. I don't see why people would look at you or hear you and instantly go, oh, that guy's gay.
I think everybody has a different idea of what gay people are like. I think we're all snowflakes. We're all different. Not everybody's the same. And where you sit in the room, where I sit in the room, what our experiences are, it's different.
But all of life is like that,
But believe me, I'm gay.
Okay, no, I believe you. I've read the book. There's a lot of evidence in there that you are in fact gay.
Yes.
But it just doesn't come jumping out at me when we talk or anything else. And I just thought it was weird that you talk a lot in the book about throughout, especially in your teen years.
Well, the early stuff is more about that, yeah.
Yeah. I just thought that was kind of weird. I just never really got that vibe from you that you were, I don't know, strange.
Well, my last book before this one was called I'm Only Gay on the Weekends, so.
Does that help?
Oh, God, yes. It's too exhausting to be gay every day. I start off on Friday. By Saturday, I'm in there, and I'm, Sunday, I'm so tired I have to lie down. And then Monday, I'm just moving furniture. That's all I'm doing.
Got it. Is it easier being gay in Hollywood? And maybe we should separate the two things that you do, is the acting and the comedy. Is it easier in either of those professions today than it was when you were a younger man? Sorry.
Oh, God, yes. But it's also, I have, 40 years of experience. I have tracks that I've put down. I've done the work. I've done the homework. I've read the book. I practice the dance. So it's not fair to ask someone like me. The only thing that is hard is that it doesn't matter what I do. I'm always going to be catching up to straight people because in the 80s, the first 10 years when I was in the closet, I wasn't able to compete at the same level as a straight person was because I was tagged as being gay and uncastable. And there are some people still, I say over 40, under 40, that see you a certain way, and they see who you are a certain way. I mean, Nate Parker certainly didn't think that when he cast me as Joseph Randall in The Birth of a Nation, playing a white heterosexual Christian plantation owner in 1831. I mean, he didn't care. He certainly was 35 or 36 when I met him, and he didn't care that I was a gay man. I think it even was a plus to him because he liked people that were activists and people that wanted to be an advocate to people being prejudiced against.
And is it different, Hollywood versus the stand-up circuit?
Stand-up circuit is the boys' club. There's a big glass ceiling. Merv Griffin was the only talk show I ever got on. I never was able to get on any of the national talk shows, even with my book, Shut Up, I'm Talking. My publicist has tried. Not one talk show would put me on. So they don't support openly gay people unless they're already famous in another market by straight people. If straight people give you a series and say, hey, this guy's famous, they don't bring up-and-coming people very much on talk shows. Very few. I think there's an Asian guy, I can't remember his name, who's gotten on some of the talk shows. Tig Notaro, certainly.
Right.
But she had the seal of approval from Louis C.K. before everything happened with him. So there's not a through line easy way in. I mean, there are some people, things have changed, but for someone who's had a career like me, it is always surprising to me that the mainstream talk shows have not called. When you have a book out of a career of someone, there's not very many actors, or rather comedians, who have had over. I mean, if you count between my acting and stand-up, close to 260 or something. I don't know. I don't do math. I hate saying this myself because it makes me sound like sour grapes. And the truth is, for a gay guy, I'm incredibly lucky. Much more than a lot of my counterparts. And I've been really, really lucky I've been able to survive and make a living and stuff. But there is those other years you can't compete at the same level because you don't have that TV series in your back pocket or that big Emmy award that you were nominated for. I mean, if you look around my office, what is it? Best actor for the Silicon Beach Film Festival for a film I did like Father. Best supporting actor for the Gay International Film or the Glitter Awards, Best Supporting Actor nomination. I mean, that's what I've been able to get. Though I have done a lot of studio pictures, I've guest starred on a lot of shows, had a couple recurring roles, but I don't have the same cachet as somebody who is my counterparts at the time. And, it's like one of those mountains that you climb. And I said to one publicist once that I was working with, if you break the ground, do you get to walk on it? That was my question. And then I answered my own question and I said, well, I intend to. That was a couple of years ago.
Well, sticking with the comedy for a second, is there a gay circuit in the same way that there's a black circuit?
Really. Not really. I mean, we do isolated dates for prides, but a lot of the prides want to book straight disco singers who have big hits, straight women. And it was interesting because in New York, for the World Pride Day, Madonna was their big headliner, and then underneath was Whoopi Goldberg, and then further down was, I believe, Billy Porter and some others. Lady Gaga came and did some stuff, Cyndi Lauper. I think I don't have, it's funny because I don't know, because the big publicity was Madonna. So a straight woman is the biggest name at the Gay Pride Festival in New York for World Pride. Mm-hmm. So we still, as gay men, stand behind the skirts of women and let them speak for us. And let me say, with this cachet, I love Madonna. I love what she's done. But to me, in these events, she needs to say, hey, Billy Porter's name is as big as mine on the bill. Anything that I'm on, I want to raise these people up. And that's what Nate Parker sort of taught me when I did Birth of a Nation, and Sean Baker did when I did Tangerine, and Ira Sachs when I did Love is Strange. All these 3 movies that I did in a row really made a big impression on me. Not just the art of the films and the talent of these 3 filmmakers, but the idea of how they were so inclusive when they did the publicity for the film of everybody involved. Mm-hmm. And they asked you to sit at the big table with them, or at least at the table next door. And I think that's what these big, straight women who have made careers from gay men need to do, is they need to have somebody with them who opens for them or works with them side by side and has equal billing. And I know it's weird to say about billing, but when the public sees that, it's a psychological suggestion of sorts. And just to see their name along with them would say something, because we're all influenced by that. And my book, the first chapter is called Simply Barbara. So no one can say that I'm not a big diva fan. I love Barbara. I love Diana Ross, Patti LaBelle, Bette Midler, Cher, Lady Gaga, love them all. Bought the CD, saw the movie, did the dance.
Do you have the shirt, though?
I don't wear T-shirts anymore.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm too old to wear T-shirts. Who wants to be an old guy wearing a T-shirt looking like he's trying to look like he's someone else? So I think it's important to raise each other up. Kathy Griffin, love her. Never has anybody open for her at all. No one. I got to say, Margaret Cho has been a big proponent of that. She's really, really raised a lot of people up. Mm-hmm. But Kathy's always on her own. And I think that she's been so successful in her area. I think if she was, and I've known her, and she's a lovely gal, kind, supportive, funny as all get out. But I think it's time now to let us stand side by side at the very least, and not standing behind the skirts of a straight woman speaking for me. Mm-hmm. Well, and I say it this way: could you imagine having, Barbra Streisand host the BET Awards, or Barry Manilow, be the entertainment for the Latino caucus? I mean, we just don't do it. Kenny Rogers come in for the next Olivia cruise. I don't know, where we'll have, Cheetah Rivera or, someone. But we as gay men, spread the wealth around. Okay. Whereas the other groups don't.
So having said all that, I'm going to ask you a question that I guess a straight guy would have to ask because I don't understand it. Why do gay men go for, and I'm asking you to generalize, why do gay men go for a Madonna, a Lady Gaga, a Cher? How does that work?
I think it started with Judy Garland and Mae West, and in the 40s and 50s when gay people started to show who they were a bit more. And I think what happened was, if there is nobody to represent you, if there's nothing that is anything like you, it's the beginning chapter of my book. If you're in love with Omar Sharif, who are you left to be but Barbra Streisand? If there is nobody standing up for you and being loud and proud. We have Adam Lampert, we have Billy Porter, we have Rosie O'Donnell, we have incredible Ellen DeGeneres, we have incredible people, Ricky Martin. We have incredible people now who are major stars who are showing us the way. And now it's time for us to have equal time, at least equal time. Mm-hmm. Not asking people to step aside, but to share the stage with us, because we are the ones that are creating this.
How do you think your career would be different, taking yourself in the mid-70s, let's say, and starting mid-70s, late 70s, early 80s, and instead of starting your career at that time, starting your career now?
So if I started working as an actor then?
An actor or comedian, yeah, the whole thing. If you,
I think I would have been more like Jim J. Bullock was before he came out, or Paul Lynde, or I would have been more of a serious actor like Richard Thomas, who's straight, but I mean, I would have gone that way of just being totally in the closet in this sweet, I don't know. It really wasn't my choice in the sense that I was pegged at a very young age that I was uncastable. I was told to my face by people, you're too light in the loafers, your slip is showing, you're not going to work for a long time, be more like Paul Lynde. It's funny, when I hit 40, I started becoming very attracted to the masculine side of myself, the leather community, the bear community, the idea of being with men who were more masculine, and I sort of became attracted to that as that sort of felt like my place. And that's not a judgment on anybody else, because I love Coco Peru, I love, Jackie Beat and Lady Bunny and Marla G. Merman. I love all these drag queens. I've paid money to see every single one of them, seen all their shows. And I think they're just gifted, so gifted. So it's not that it just wasn't for me, though I had been told a lot when I was very young that I should do drag and create a drag character and do that. But it wasn't my dream. It wasn't who I was. As you said at the beginning of the interview, that we're all different. We're all different kinds of gay people. I wanted to be a great character actor like Dustin Hoffman, and that was my, want as a kid. I loved all the great character actors. Those are my favorites, It just wasn't who I was. I don't think I probably would have survived. There is a part of me that thinks that maybe it would have been different if, I don't even want to say that, but it's just a different time. It was just a different time. I can't really relate in that sense. But I was sort of, in a way, not pushed out of the closet, but I was so depressed. I had done a movie called Kindergarten Cop, and my part had got cut down immensely, and I played a hairdresser to the villainess. And I just thought, dear God, this is so hard. I was in one of the biggest movies of that year, and my part was like 2 seconds. And I worked so hard, and I was this hairdresser, and it didn't, in the movie, and it was this sort of very, very frivolous part. And I remember people thought that I was someone else in the movie because there's this other kid that played one of the criminals that looked like me. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, if you get a bigger part in something, how things can change and if people see that. And then I just started to think, they weren't about to let me even audition for that. I wasn't even allowed in the room to compete. Or if I was wrong for the role, they never thought, hey, let's change the role and make it for somebody that isn't Mr. Macho. I mean, now I could do whatever I had to do. At the time, I don't think I had that skill set because I didn't know who I was. Now I could do it like this. I could do the half part like that. I could do whatever you want me to do. You want me to do something, I'll do it. Get in, get out, up and down, in and out. What do you want? Same thing as when I, in Birth of a Nation, who would ever thought that I could play that part? I didn't when I got the audition. It's hard times and small farmers like you and myself breaking evens, hard enough again the heads impossible. You ready, boy? I who thought that I could do, change? And what I just did, or just sort of a slip in and out. It isn't even to the extent of where I was when I did the role.
One of the things you just mentioned, I think was a big part of the book, was that for the longest time you didn't know who you were. I mean, you didn't, because I guess you didn't have a lot of role models. You didn't have...
When I was very young, in my 20s, I was figuring it out.
Yeah.
And there's nobody to help me, in those days. I went to the Suicide Prevention Center when I was 19. Was I 19? No, I was 21. And I remember I was sitting in a swivel chair, and I told a woman who was my therapist there, a German lady who had one eye that always went like this. I remember she'd always blink one of her eyes. I don't know how she did that. And I told her that I was gay. I could even say gay at the time. I said that I was bisexual because I still had my girlfriend, Lisa. Mm-hmm. And it was so painful and so hard. And then as I told people, I told my girlfriend, Amanda, who had become my good friend, and I told people. And as I told my family and things, it became easier and easier and easier, and everything the fear became further and further and further away. And then even my boyfriend at the time, Frank, who I was involved with.
One of the things that drives me crazy about your book, and I don't mean I didn't like it, but well, I guess I'm sort of saying that, is that for me, I have a kid. And for me, I cannot imagine being a parent who didn't unconditionally love their child. No matter what my kid has thrown at me over the years, my love for my child has never changed. Your story is very different, and it drives me crazy that your parents, your brother and sister, uh, uncles, made your life so much harder. To me, you should any kid, they're always someone's kid, should always have that family to fall back on. That at least you may get rejected by the world, you may have this problem, but there should be family that you can always rely on. And it drives me personally crazy that you didn't have that for so long. I know you have a much better relationship with your mother and your dad at this point, but it was not. That was a very hard part of your life to read about.
It's so long ago, you know. I guess what I do is I use the 12-step program, Al-Anon, to help me through it when I still do. I forgave my parents both. Nothing but forgiveness for both my dad and my mom. I take care of my mom now. She lives 10 minutes from me, and she will live 10 minutes from me for the rest of her life. My dad has since passed.
Oh, I didn't realize.
But when you get to the last couple chapters, you'll there's a lot of really great stuff about him, and everything that needed to be said was said. The other people in my family, from different degrees, there's forgiveness. It's hard to forget. There is a chapter in my book, I don't know if you've got to it yet. It's called Blood is Thicker Than Water. Not.
Yes.
So if anybody's listening to this interview, the thing that I learned the most in writing this book is that your family are not your friends, and sometimes they're not even your family. And just because you grew up with somebody or because you are related to them in some way through blood, it doesn't mean you have to like them or they have to like you. You don't have to be mean or cut people off, you know, but forgiving them for the wreckage of their past is a good idea, because otherwise you carry it with you, but you're allowed to move on. And if they call, you say hello. And if you don't want to do something, you don't go and do it. I mean, I can't do that anymore. I can't have my brother or sister treat my mom badly and not forgive her after so many years. I can't be a part of it. You know, but I talk to them if they call, and I'm respectful and I'm kind, and I have nothing but good wishes for them, and it's always nice to hear from them. And but I can't become a part of this thing anymore. It's just too. It's too crazy.
It's interesting in the book that you're, despite some ups and downs, correct me if I got this wrong, your dad became more accepting of who you were pretty much before anyone else in the immediate family. Your mother came around. Now I'm 2/3 of the way through the book, I should clarify, which is why I didn't know that your dad had passed, I guess. But it's just, it's hard. I mean, it's just really hard when you don't have those people who know you best and know you longest there to support you. And that just made me feel so sad, particularly for your teens and your 20s. It just, when you needed them the most, a lot of times they really weren't there for you. The story about your Thanksgiving, and I mean, just it's
Oh, the grandmother's funeral, that's a big one.
yeah. And it's hard.
Pretty funny too, but
yeah, it's hard to read. And part of the reason I recommended the book in my introduction is that people who may have a gay family member, and maybe they don't know how to handle it, maybe they're handling it poorly, it's really helpful to get your perspective on the things that happen in your life with your own family. And I'm hoping that, you know, some people will read it and go, you know, I could really be treating so-and-so better than I am. I don't really have a reason that I'm treating them so poorly. It's just you know. So anyway.
Well, I speak from my point of view, and I don't speak from what's in their head and why. And, you know, I was not a perfect person in any way, shape, or form, so let's be clear about that. I was a smart ass, and I was flamboyant when I was young, and I said the wrong things at the wrong time, I'm sure, and spoke before I thought. I don't do that anymore. But, you know, it's just the way it all went down. I wasn't lucky in that area. In another area, I'm really lucky. I'm very close to my mom now. I have great friends. I think it's really the thing that has hurt the most is probably my romantic relationships. I don't know if you read the chapter called All the Men I Loved Before. I don't remember where.
I don't remember the chapter titles. I remember the incidents in the book, but
all the boyfriends. I don't know.
I think I must have read that.
I don't know. Remember where that was? Let me see. I have the book right here. I don't remember. Keep your friends close and keep your enemies in a storage locker. I love that chapter. To All the Men I Loved Before. Yeah, you read that.
Okay.
That's about Greg and Tony and Frank and all my boyfriends and Giuseppe.
I'm not supposed to say. Forget you heard that, folks. There were a lot of the. I guess it was in that chapter. A lot of the relationships did not end well in that chapter.
No, they didn't.
No, and for very different reasons, very different situations.
Basically, a string of men that are unavailable.
Right.
I have an unavailable family, so I became attracted to unavailable men.
Oh, there you go. There's some psychology work there. Yeah. Well, as we need to kind of wind down a bit, I guess.
Sorry. Thank you, Doc.
Yeah,
it's been like a therapy session.
Yes, and I will send you a PayPal invoice when we are done.
It's interesting the book has moved you so I really like that.
No, it really did. And I had a particular interest because we've spoken before, and people who've been on the show more than once, I tend to have an attachment in that I'm always interested to know what you're doing or to learn more. And so, yeah, it was very interesting to me. Was it, even though you had a lot of this material in your act and things that you've done, was it hard to sit down and put these things on paper in words? And
some of the chapters, the boyfriend chapter was quite hard to write. The father chapter, which is the first one, called "Gotta Move, Gotta Get Out" about the Holocaust, and my dad having to leave his home, was really difficult to write. I thought a lot about the brother-sister chapter and whether I should write it.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
It's my point of view of it's my life and it's how it affected me. And all that stuff affected me a lot more than I was willing to admit. So that was hard to write. But there's some real funny chapters, too. Mm-hmm. I mean, the Barbra Streisand chapter is pretty funny. The Burning Jason, the Burning Man chapter is very funny. There's a couple of really fun things in there.
Has the book done what you wanted it in the sense, I assume when someone in entertainment writes a book like this, part of it is you're hoping to introduce yourself to people who maybe have not hired you before, have not cast you before, have not brought you on to their club before. Has it had the desired effect? Was it worth it in that regard to?
Well, it's only been out for a little less than 2 months, so it's just starting. Mm-hmm. Books, people don't read a book in 2 seconds. It's not like going to a movie or watching a TV show. It's more of a long drive rather than a sprint. Mm-hmm. So it's starting to happen in the last couple of weeks. I'm getting a lot of emails, a lot of letters, a lot of reviews. Nobody has said anything bad, which is really nice. I'm waiting for that. Maybe it's my upbringing, but Amazon everybody has given me 5 stars, which is sort of shocking.
It's good. Well, I've shown you. You've gotten my word. I mean, it's very engaging, and it definitely stirred up some emotion for me, and which is what you want in a book, right? I mean,
well, please put a review on Amazon, and because you're a big shot, they'll listen to you.
I'm a big shot. Yeah. Well, folks, listen to Mr. Big Shot here. You can find Jason Stewart's book. Shut up! I'm talking. He says it, but you say it.
Shut up, I'm talking.
There you go. Coming out in Hollywood and making it to the middle in great stores everywhere, or you can order it right now at a great price at MrMedia.com. If you are if you are looking at this on the Mr. Media website, below the video, you'll see the cover of the book. You can click on that. It'll take you right to Amazon. You can get it as an ebook. You can get it as a physical book. Also on the page, there are links to other of Jason's work. Feel free to do that. If you're
movies coming out, I have a new series I haven't started talking about, which I will. And I'm also, yesterday I got cast in an Airbnb commercial, and I'm playing a gay couple. It's the first time ever. Isn't that weird?
You're not playing the whole couple, though, right?
No, I can't play. Yes, it's like the Patty Duke show. It's like two. Well, I'm two people. No, I'm playing part of a couple. Yeah, I've never done that before.
There's a hamburger chain called Checkers on the East Coast, and there is a commercial where one guy is playing both parts. He's playing himself and himself, talking to himself. So when you said you're playing a gay, I thought, okay, it could be.
Part of a gay couple.
Part of a gay couple. That sounds good.
I haven't played a gay guy in a while, so.
You want people to go to your website, jasonstuart.com?
Stuart.
Thank you. And how involved are you with social media, Twitter, Facebook, and stuff?
Very much so. And all that is on my website on the homepage. You can click on any of those, and you can get my home media, all my social media on my homepage.
Great.
I sounded like such an old guy. Home media. What was that?
Twitter at me, folks. Well, Jason Stuart, always great to see you, talk to you. I enjoyed the book, and thank you so much for joining us on Mr. Media today.
Thank you for having me on again.
Turn your back on the deceiver. It's a bad idea to believe her. A bad idea to believe her.